China's corrupt practices in Africa have been brought to light as a massive haul of 3.5 million documents in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, reveal a Chinese-run company moved millions of dollars through a Congo bank to former President Kabila's family and allies. Over a 5-year period, tens of millions of dollars flowed through Congo Construction Company, CCC, to people and companies closely associated with Congo's then President, Joseph Kabila, all at BGFI Bank, a bank partly owned by Kabila's sister and run by his brother, Selemani Francis Mwali. The information was obtained by Paris-based anti-corruption group Platform to Protect Whistleblowers in Africa and the French news organisation Mediapart, and shared with media outlets coordinated by the European Investigative Collaborations Network and 5 non-governmental organisations. It is usually known by the name Congo Hold-Up. In particular, for more than 6 months, Bloomberg News analysed the trove of 3.5 million bank documents from BGFI. They conclude that the documents offer an unprecedented glimpse into how several individuals and companies operated in what would turn out to be a takeover of much of the Congolese mining industry by Chinese companies during Kabila's presidency. Special focus is on the CCC's secret role as an intermediary between Chinese mining groups and the Kabila clan. The Sentry, a Washington-based anti-corruption group, used the banking data to write a report about the Kabila family's financial ties to Chinese mining companies, called The Back Channel: State Capture and Bribery in Congo's Deal of the Century, published in November 2021. Their investigation found clear evidence of corruption, showing that Chinese corporations colluded with power players in the DRC to secure access to billions of dollars worth of natural resources, all with an assist from the world of high finance. After replacing his assassinated father in 2001, and negotiating an end to the brutal civil war, Kabila opened the country's vast reserves of copper and cobalt to international investors. Western firms, initially enthusiastic about Kabila's Congo, have since beat a steady retreat. BHP Group, Anglo-American PLC's De Beers, and Freeport's McMoran Inc. have all sold mines or abandoned projects. Those that stayed often formed high-risk partnerships that are now the subject of corruption probes, including one by the US Department of Justice into Glencore plc, and 2 others by the UK Serious Fraud Office into Glencore and Eurasian Natural Resources Corp. This has increasingly left the field to companies from China eager to expand their control over the supply of 2 metals that are mined together in Congo and are at the heart of the nascent revolution in electric vehicles. In less than a decade, Chinese companies have gone from minor contributors to accounting for half of Congo's cobalt output and about 70% of its copper production, according to Bloomberg. The centerpiece of this transformation is a $6.2 billion minerals for infrastructure deal, the biggest investment in Congo's history, spearheaded by China Railway Group Ltd. And Power Construction Corp of China, known as Power China. In 2008, the 2 countries agreed that the Chinese companies would finance $3 billion worth of infrastructure and build a $3.2 billion copper and cobalt project known as Psycho Mines, whose tax-free profits would repay both investments. Supporters hailed it as a proud symbol of China's new win-win model of development financing, an alternative to the strict conditions attached to lending from the Western-dominated World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Du Wei, born in Liaoning in China in 1979, worked at Psychomines for 3 years before later incorporating CCC in 2012, also opening a company account at BGFI. Between February and July 2013, CCC, which had no known construction projects, received $18 million from bank accounts in China and Hong Kong, held by 4 offshore companies registered in the British Virgin Islands. The BGFI records list the justifications as construction fee payment, other transfers, and other. Du sent most of this cash on to Kabila's China Agency, a government agency to oversee the Chinese relationship, run by a close ally of Kabila. The agency then promptly paid off a $14 million loan the office had taken from the BGFI for the benefit of companies that were or would be linked to Kabila. Psychomines later made 3 large payments to CCC from June to September 2016 for a total of $25 million. Du distributed most of the money to companies and individuals linked to the president's family, bank records show. This included $7.5 million for a firm whose shareholders were Kabila's sister and Soleimani's wife, and $1.6 million that went to the owner of a vessel that transported animals, including zebras, giraffes and wildebeests, to Kabila's private nature reserve. CCC also forwarded more than $1.7 million to Du's personal accounts in Congo and Hong Kong, BGFI documents show. By late 2017, as reports of corruption accumulated, BGFI realized that it needed to act to avoid potentially crippling US Treasury sanctions. First, it distanced the bank from the presidential family. Next, the bank instructed Du Ho, the chief auditor in Kinshasa, to review Soleimani's leadership. Du Ho's assessment, completed in July 2018, concluded that governance had been unacceptable and characterized by a lack of integrity and transparency in the declaration of conflicts of interest. Multi-million-dollar payments into and out of CCC's accounts, including those from Psychomines, were executed either without essential paperwork or with documents of questionable authenticity, according to the audit. In total, about $65 million flowed through CCC's accounts between January 2013 and July 2018, of which $41 million was withdrawn in cash, making it impossible to track the beneficiaries of all the funds. Still, bank records show that at least $30 million was routed via transfers or in cash to people and entities directly linked to the Kabilas or companies owned by the presidential family. Kabila stepped down at the beginning of 2019 after 18 years in power, following delayed elections held under pressure from the US and the African Union, in which Felix Tshisekedi was declared the winner. What hasn't changed is the control of Congo's mines by Chinese companies. However, Tshisekedi has launched investigations into the Minerals for Infrastructure deal. Of the $3 billion in promised infrastructure financing from the Chinese companies, most of it still hasn't arrived. Tshisekedi's government said in September that projects worth only about $825 million have been built so far.